investigated it and found out how phenomenal it is, a few things clicked for me. Apart from being really useful as a self-reflective medal for mirrors, for example, it means patience and perseverance for people who wear it. It also represents unconditional love and kindness. So silver has wonderful elements and qualities. The other side of it was that I'm drawn to koi fish. Now, you know what I'm talking about when I say koi, those are those beautiful large fish that you see in ponds. They're often multicolored, vibrant, black and orange, or orange and black and yellow and black. Well, they have a wonderful meaning and symbolism too. And I've lost my screen. So the qualities of a koi fish are that they're graceful and resilient and courageous. Didn't know that. You often see them swimming effortlessly in a pristine environment, but they're also known for their ability to ascend rushing streams and waterfalls until they reach their destination. They never give up. They're determined. They have tenacity. This allows them to overcome obstacles and achieve. Koi fish are also symbolic of solidarity, harmony, evolution, growth, and transformation. And this is why I created the Silver Koi Principles, because it brings all those qualities together in one place. So let's get right to it. Here are the 3 major principles of the Silver Koi that will help you to increase productivity, re-engage exhausted teams, and transform yourself and your people. The 3 major principles come from the word koi itself. So K, O, and I. Principle in koi starts with the first letter K. The first principle is kindness. Now, this may be unexpected because we're talking about commerce, we're talking about leadership, but actually, kindness is extremely powerful. It's transformational, in fact. Why? Because it calls forth strength in others. It doesn't hold people down. It allows people to rise. It shows people how to cooperate instead of competing, how to communicate and collaborate, and make community livable again. Kind leaders support individuals to become a team that supports and encourages each other, that hold each other accountable. They show respect, build trust, share common goals, because they want everyone to succeed. It's time for a new way. Kind leaders don't pull rank, they lend strength. It's a different kind of power. They don't overpower, they empower. Now, you know, for the inspiration for my talk for Silver Koi is because of the properties and characteristics that they have, and kindness is one of them. And it's a fact that Silver Koi leaders, as I like to call them, create cohesive teams. Silver Koi leaders have those properties, they hold those characteristics, and I'm going to go through the rest of them in a minute. But this is what Silver Koi leaders do. They help their team realize how good kindness feels, how important it is to be kind, to think kindly. They're not experts who pretend to know it all. They're lifelong learners who demonstrate and model vulnerability, and they're opening to learning from their team. The strategy for productivity and efficiency, kindness. Who would have known? So imagine a kind environment. In a kind environment, people feel bold enough to try, to innovate, to put their hand up more and give it a go more, because that's what people do in a kind environment. They're free, they're bold, they're strong, they're willing, they're inspired. So, way to get results from people is for people to get results from themselves. So we're actually talking about real personality enhancements. We're talking about changing your approach to leadership. So through your focus of kindness, you become more attentive, more sensitive to changes in the environment. You pick up on cues. You know the ideal conditions in order for your team to thrive. You also know how to encourage people to be bold within this wonderful environment and try new things without fear. And that's the environment you need to create. If you've ever experienced kindness, I want you to think about a time when you experienced real kindness, whether it was at work or home, wherever. I want you to think about how that made you feel. And I want you to think about how it probably, most likely, probably definitely initiated some growth in you. Kindness is about being generous. It's about being bigger. It's about unearthing dreams that have been buried in this difficult time we've been living in. And now it's time to help people unearth those dreams, plant them, nurture them, tend them, and take care of them. Silver Koi leaders, kind leaders, ultimately focus on the whole person. That's the difference. That's the difference between leadership today and where we need to go now. The whole person is key. Silver Koi leaders need to know their team well and what motivates them and energizes them, because that's when you can really help them. Otherwise, it's just really shallow and trivial, and the impact is not as great. And this is where you get to help them with their well-being. We know now that after everything we've been through this past year, how important your team's well-being is, and kindness is the key to doing. It's absolutely the key to help your team feel better, act better, and work better. It ultimately gives you and your team purpose and drive. This is what it all boils down to. They trust you. They know you have their best interest at heart, so they're open to you. Sometimes they have conversations with you that are difficult or more personal because they know you care. So tell me now, who thinks kindness is weak? Tell me now where kindness is relevant. It is relevant. And the more you can bring kindness into leadership, the more powerful your leadership will be. You can be kind and powerful at the same time. It isn't one at the expense of the other. Okay, so let's get on to the second principle of the Koi. That is the O for originality. Now, leadership is one of those subjects that people talk about all the time, but one of the things I think they miss out on that I think is also key to being a powerful leader and effective leader is originality. Being your own true, authentic self is far more effective and impactful than any cookie cutter leadership you might have assigned to yourself. If you're not being unique and authentic, I just want you to think about how effective that might be as a leader. Just think for a second. Are you being as impactful as you can be if you aren't being your authentic self? If you aren't being true to who you really are? I'll tell you why that's important. Because in order to add value to your team, you've got to bring your whole self to the job, the whole self of leadership. And that means trusting who you are. Knowing your strengths, having kindness, and being able to stand out uniquely from the crowd, that's true leadership. Everything else is just following the crowd, and that's not powerful. Nobody likes it. You need to be recognizable and unique. Silver Koi leaders symbolize a willingness to stand out from the crowd. They're determined and creative and have a fighting spirit. So explore your own unique style and flair, and allow your team to do the same, to be distinctly true to themselves. We know from research that the best teams are diverse teams. And so, to get the best out of your teams, allow them to choose destiny pathways, to be all that they already are, not forcing them to fit into a mold. Because when your people feel like they belong, when they can be their true self, feel connected and included, then they do their best work and are the most productive and effective. By cultivating and fostering this culture and a mindset of originality, you cultivate an engaged team. Now we've looked at kindness and how powerful and extraordinary it is as a principle of leadership, and we've looked at originality and how critical it is to engage and motivate your team. So the final principle of the KOI is the I for intention. Intentions are far greater than goals or objectives, which tend to become task-based or list work, which, let's face it, is boring and tedious. Intention is so much deeper than that. And what I mean by that is when you have a clear idea in your mind of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, you have intention. When you lead with intention, you lead with that purpose in mind. If I asked you, what do you want to see for your team by the end of this year? Or what do you want your team to look like by this time next year? You'd be describing your intention for the team. The difference between a goal and an intention is that you know how to bring the vision about. It's peaceful. Let me tell you that a silver koi leader who leads with kindness, creating a safe environment, cultivating originality, unearthing dreams like we talked about, also knows how vital it is to lead with intention and create a team that has intentions of their own. Employees are bored with goals. They find them frustrating. It's the task they're expected to start each new year off with, and for many of our teams, it's daunting. Like New Year's resolutions, starting a diet, or a fitness team. Not a fitness team, a fitness routine, something different. All kinds of doubts come pouring in. Fears arise. What will be different this time? Will I be able to stick with it? Will I be successful? Have you asked yourself these questions? What will happen if I'm not successful, if I fail? These fears are real. It sometimes keeps people awake at night. I have these discussions with people. They're scared. Am I doing enough? Goals are difficult. Setting them, aligning them. It's better to come from a cohesive vision and life strategy. Where do I want to be? What is standing in my way and throwing me off my path? Helping your team to clear the way towards fulfilling their purpose and destiny and vision for their life is leading with intention and helping your team realize their intention. There's a little problem with intentions, but when you know this, when you get what I'm going to tell you now, you can be aware. So let me tell you what it is and how you can help yourself and your team. Remember when I said that the current roadmap that you're using, or the one that's actually playing out, isn't the one that's actually playing out? Let me tell you what I mean by that. Fear of failure and self-doubt create hidden or secret intentions. You might have a conversation with an employee who tells you they would like to sign up for the aspiring team leader pathway, but they may not be very self-aware. They may not acknowledge that they're afraid of confrontation or holding people accountable or having difficult conversations, so they're extremely shy and don't have a lot of confidence. This could be why the actual roadmap or intention pathway is not playing out. The hidden intention, it's about self-protection. It's an innate thing. We all have it, and we need to be aware of it and sensitive to it. We also need to be insightful where our team is concerned. They have secret hidden intentions, such as not wanting to be laughed at, or not wanting to stick their neck out and be viewed by the team as a climber, or not wanting to have people wonder, who do you think you are, reaching for aspirations maybe above their station. That hidden intention is ruling them and holding them back. What I'm talking about here is self-awareness, self-esteem, that feeling of not being ready or not being good enough. Think about a time you experienced this. What was the quiet hidden intention for yourself or someone on your team? How did you overcome it or help them to overcome it? For me, I'm now speaking and coaching people. That was my intention for many years, but my hidden intention was I didn't want to be judged. I was afraid of what people would say about me. So I kept myself small for a very long time until I realized what I was doing, and I've now overcome it. I'm not holding myself back anymore. So I've taken you through the 3 principles of the silver coin: kindness, originality, and intention. And I've shown you how kindness can re-engage exhausted teams and give them confidence to bring their whole self to work and admit the hidden intentions that are holding them back. I've told you how allowing yourself and your team to be original is how you add value and make an impact, increase engagement and productivity, and how being real about your intentions for your future and working through the hidden underlying intentions that are holding you back will help you and your teams to reach their full potential and purpose. Now I have a surprise for you. It's kind of controversial, but it's fundamentally everything. If we go back to the koi fish and the characteristics and qualities of silver and koi, and this is my last key and bonus principle. Now, what we're really diving into here is emotional intelligence, or EQ. I'm sure you've at least heard of it. You might know all about it, or maybe you're not sure what is meant by it or why it's important. But emotional intelligence, as far as I understand it, is the ability to recognize emotions correctly and how to navigate social environments, such as the workplace, accurately and effectively. And EQ is controversial because it's seen as a soft skill, but studies have shown that people with a high emotional intelligence have greater mental health, job performance, and leadership skills. Why is this important? If you don't have a good EQ, you're not going to be a good leader. The more emotionally intelligent you can be, the better leader you will be. Hybrid teams coming back to the workplace that EQ, it's more relevant than any time in history. EQ is a great return on investment because when employees are working in an environment that helps them grow, develop their strengths, ultimately achieve their dreams, then you have something your competition can't compete with. And that will be reflected in how your employees represent the brand, how your customers are treated, and how your business grows in return. People are at the heart of any company. They're our greatest resource. And when you treat them that way, it pays dividends. What I've given you today, the principles of the K, the O, and the I, are a good start, a stepping stone, a system for you to start building your silver koi leadership principles and your EQ. Thank you for listening. Call to action. If any of this has resonated with you, we can talk more now. But if you need to know more about these leadership principles or how to apply them to yourself or your team, let's continue the conversation. And I've added my contact details here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Are there any questions for Lisa? It was a great presentation. Any questions? Rita, I see your hand.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right, Lisa?
Yes, I can.
I was wondering, during the talk on kindness, how do you balance your kindness that some employees don't take advantage of it? For example, I need to go and fetch my child, but it happens over and over and over again. How do you balance employees taking advantage of your kindness?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's along those lines of kindness and being powerful at the same time. And just because you're kind doesn't mean you're a walkover. It doesn't mean that people can take advantage of you. I think for me, I would have a conversation with that employee, the one that you're speaking of specifically, just to talk about what you've observed, what you've noticed, and that you want to be supportive, that they're flexible, that they do need to fetch their children now, and how can we make sure that works out in the best way during the day for the team. But it doesn't happen when there's a meeting. It doesn't happen when there's something you need them to be there for, so that you can discuss how you can be kind to them to make sure they're able to fulfill their home life duties as well as their work duties. And just to make sure that they, obviously if someone's taking advantage, you do need to call them on it, but you can still be kind when you have that conversation. That, I need to be sure that we're all being treated fairly, that we're all being held accountable. It can't look like there's favoritism here. So let's just talk about what your needs are and how I can help you be able to pick up your kids, but also, make sure you're here for work when it's really important, that you don't schedule that at difficult times. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's a very good answer. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any more questions?
I'm just curious, as someone who's, leads this way, after you've heard that talk, is there anything that you're sort of thinking, well, that's crazy, that'll never work? Or are you thinking, that really resonated with me? Or do you have any examples from your own leadership? Be curious to hear what people think. Hi.
Next.
Always next. Hi. I understand and I absolutely agree with everything you say about the Silver Koi principle, and that's really great. The problem, however, and fortunately for me and possibly them, I don't work with teams of people, but I have in the past. And one of the greatest challenges is getting clarity throughout the entire team and getting the buy-in from the entire team, because different people have different values, and
yes.
often people in a team do not necessarily share the same values, or, and it's something that I've come across a lot, is that you have several people in a team who are not working to their core strengths and who don't even know what their values are.
Yeah.
They're not clear on who they are as individuals and where they fit in, or even what it is that they want to do. They're there because it pays a salary and it puts food on the table, and for no other reason. There's no loyalty, there's no commitment, there's no, okay, well, I can work 5 minutes extra, but I want an hour off in lieu of. That's what it's like. And I find that one of the biggest challenges. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, when I'm faced with that kind of team member, I tend to be very autocratic. And that's probably not the right way to deal with it. But that's the measure of this beast that I am.
Yeah, I've experienced some of those employees as well. And that's why I find having that one-on-one conversation and asking them, what do you care about? I mean, the company comes with their goals, their objectives, and they want us to align. And some people are like, well, I don't know how what I'm going to do aligns with all of that. And so I sort of work at it from the other way, going backwards. I talk to people about, where do you see yourself in your life in the next few years? Do you want to be here in this company? Are you planning to perhaps move into something else? Okay, if you're staying here, where do you see yourself in 3 years? How are we, like, do you see yourself doing the same work that you're doing now? And a lot of people say, yes, actually, I just love what I do now. I just want to do this. I don't want to grow. I don't want to aspire to become a leader. And then I say, well, then let's make the best you that we can make. And in terms of those values and those, some of the principles, I try and help them to work on those, to be a better teammate, to learn how to communicate better, how to collaborate better, because ultimately it does make them happier at work. They might not think that. They might think, oh, these are the people I work with. I don't want to be friends with them. Well, you don't have to be friends, but you do have to make work a nice place to be. We like to have fun. And some people are more introverted and shy, but at least we try and include everyone and make people feel like you belong here. And even though you're not aspiring for the world, how can we help you be the best that you are? Whether that's personally make you a better parent, make you a better sister, a better friend. We can work on those EQ goals as opposed to the professional development.
I find it also quite helpful to ask the question, what is it that you love to do? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Exactly.
Without using your alarm? So on a weekend, what gets you out of bed? What feeds your fire? What fires up your soul?
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's that whole person, right? We don't just have parts of a person. We're trying to engage the whole person, and that includes what energizes them, what excites them. Definitely, I agree.
Okay.
Lisa, Tim Basile asked a question. She says, thank you for the great principles. I'm interested in how best one can apply these principles to support a manager who feels inefficient or deficient.
Yeah, that's a really great question as well. I'm all about coaching people and mentoring people and finding out, first of all, from that manager, why do you feel inefficient or deficient? What is it that's making you feel that way? And trying to help them explore that a little bit. And when I talked about clearing the pathway, if you look at your life journey, your pathway to leadership, some of us have, logs that have rolled over the pathway or a big boulder, maybe things that have happened to us as a child that make us feel I'm not good enough. I feel inefficient. I don't feel like I belong here. And those are those boulders or those logs or those big tumbleweeds. And so through coaching and through discussion and helping them to become self-aware and identify what those things are, we work at them one at a time to move them out of their way. And it's quite exciting to see people who actually move one out of the way and take another step forward. It's not about racing to the finish line, but it's about helping them to see why they feel inefficient or deficient. What is it that's making them feel that way? A lot of times we have these negative thoughts about ourselves, and people who are on the call that I've coached will know I say, stop it. Stop doing that. Stop talking to yourself like that. Be vigilant about your thoughts. Be the goalkeeper. No more thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not efficient. I don't belong here. And start replacing that with those positive things. You would never speak to your best friend like that. You would never say to your best friend, well, you suck. You're the worst manager I've ever had. You would never, but we speak to ourselves that way. And so it's that coaching and teaching people how to change what they believe about themselves. And I'm a prime example. Those of you who don't know me, big confidence issues. I talked about, keeping myself small. When I first started working at Refinitiv, I came in, I did my work, I left, I barely spoke. And here I am 9 years later. And it's been a pathway, it's been a journey, but I've had people along my path who've helped me to identify my strengths and unearth those and realize I do have qualities and skills, and by being myself, I can be efficient. Sorry, I rambled. I hope that's okay.
My earphones aren't working.
Oh, no, but we're recording, so you should be able to listen to it.
Lorata, I see your hand, and then Jo, I see yours afterwards.
Thank you, Cole. Morning. Thank you, Lisa. So one of the questions you asked was our contribution and what we have seen if we had practiced those kindness principles as leaders.
Yes.
So just to share my journey, I think for me, when displaying those kind leadership traits, what I experienced from my team was more connectedness. Yes. And there was more trust. And the team would voluntarily bring myself into their personal space and share their own challenges without me having to ask, because you've already created a safe space for the team in how you lead them. And you mentioned the last slide was those inhibiting intentions. The team I saw would share those voluntarily with me to say, this is what keeps me back. This is what is happening. And even though they're looking for other opportunities externally, very surprising, you wouldn't see that in a work environment. My team would tell me, I've got an interview tomorrow, and I help them prepare because we have a good understanding and trust. So in the morning they walk in, they say, I'm not in a good space. This is what happened at home. If you see me, not sort of concentrating well today, this is what's happened. Yeah. And that creates such good team cohesion. And at any given point in time, where everybody's mind is at. So it's worked well for me in the past.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Jo?
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, Lisa. I do think I love the analogy of koi, and the one thing about koi in the right size pond is that they grow into themselves bigger and better. And I think it's a great analogy to keep in mind. The one thing around being authentic, and I think the part, if you look at the 3 pieces, the O specifically, is what we've said with our teams, it's worked quite well, is to move with humility. And we went through a couple of pieces, and the 2 takeaways we shared with our team that I think has helped work around permission to be yourself and to be vulnerable was, 1, what's the greatest question you ever asked? And someone said help. And I think that that's been really important for our team to be allowed to do that. And specifically under COVID-19, and you mentioned earlier, people working much harder or being unsure of their impact. With the level of uncertainty, we have to be far more deliberate in terms of recognizing that, and the fact that actually what you would normally have in an office environment or where you could collaborate or work more collectively as a team, that's missing now. So deliberately checking in as opposed to just asking for help, I think is key. And that's where, as vulnerable leaders, that permission comes in. The second one was, don't compare yourself to anyone else. And I think that's been even more difficult under the COVID-19 scenario, because it is definitively output driven in terms of people feeling their value add, but the connectedness around team members, for example, who are the glue and don't necessarily have a task orientated relationship role, that's been quite difficult for as a team leader to manage that and to keep those team members properly plugged in. So I quite liked the component around kindness. And we've been really deliberate. You asked us what we're doing differently about just checking in, because what we have found is in the current environment, everything has an agenda, or it's related to a deliverable, or it's related to getting stuff done. And it's quite interesting, the reaction when you have a just check-in session, and everyone's quite surprised that they didn't have to do something. And we realized that actually connecting is doing something. So quite deliberately carving out time to do that with our teams in a fun way. And I think your piece around COI is definitely something we'll be sharing in the next session. I think it's easy to take away with you. And it's easy to feed. We've been quite deliberate about our analogies being linked to real life things, because you have to keep feeding it. And I think nothing comes from doing it once. So very insightful, really appreciate the time. And just how you presented it. It's one of those things you could put into an Audible, to be frank, and listen to it again and again in the car. So beautifully done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Thanks so much.
Other questions or comments?
I just see a question on the chat, if you don't mind me, that wasn't answered. I think it was earlier on. So there was, how does one address a manager who has a bad attitude when speaking to employees? That was Masin that asked that question.
Okay, that's a wow, that's a good one. So yeah, it's one thing obviously when you're the leader and you're addressing your own team, but when you need to address maybe your own leader, or maybe, you know, as a manager, there's other managers in the management team that you notice, or maybe, or you hear, yeah, aren't really treating their team in the best way. And it's the hardest thing to do, but really the only way to manage it is to ask, can we talk? And just talk about, this is what I've observed. This is what I've noticed. How does that feel hearing that? Would you agree? Is there any reason that's causing you to sort of act out in that way? Or, you know, and just, you have to bring it up. You have to hold people accountable. It is the hardest part of leadership, because you want people to like you and you want to be a popular leader and you don't want to upset someone or hurt their feelings. But really, and I've said this to so many people on my team or on other teams, that I care about you too much to leave you this way. There's so much more potential. And if I don't say something, I'm actually doing you a disservice, because people will talk about people all day long behind their back. But if one person is brave enough to talk to them openly, I mean, it's a risk for sure, and you have to decide if it's a good risk. Yeah, but I really think it's important. And if you as an employee have been treated badly by another manager, and you have approached them and you have tried to have a conversation and you haven't been successful, it's really important that you take that a step further, whether it's engaging another leader who can talk with you, or to engage HR to have a conversation. But yeah, definitely it needs to be addressed. And I'm saying that from someone who finds that very difficult to do, but it's really important to have those conversations. When you see people acting in a way that doesn't match our values, you know, we can't say, I know we all come from different corporations and organizations, but I believe we all are sort of hold the same values to be true. And being unkind or rude or treating people with disrespect, that doesn't line up. And so you can be the most skilled, most talented, excellent, technical person, but if your values are lacking, yeah, it doesn't line up, and so it does need to be addressed. And that does sort of lead me to this idea that, you know, a lot of times in corporations, we have all kinds of training for people, learn how to do this, learn how to do that, learn how to code or whatever, but there's nothing that says learn how to be a better person, learn how to manage your emotions, learn how to speak to people with respect, and not be rude or snappy. And we don't have classes at school about that. We don't have training about that in the workplace. And that's why my focus so much is on the kindness. And especially with the current climate, I know we're beaten over the head with it, but if we're not going to be kind now, when will we be kind in the workplace? And I'm really proud of Refinitiv because they're really putting a lot of emphasis on people and our well-being, and it's critical. And so, yeah, I think well-being comes from treating each other with respect. Not feeling like you're going to work and like, oh my gosh, is she going to snap at me today? And, you know, that kind of thing. It's just not on. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Joe, I see your hand.
Yeah, I think the one thing about your point on kindness as a starting thing is that we're human first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And scientifically, we release oxytocin if we hug someone for 60 seconds or longer, not necessarily possible in the current environment.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's about that act of kindness and considered thought. And they actually say you will evoke the same reaction in someone else if they watch an act of kindness, let alone actually execute on it. So the more we do and are seen to be treating people with kindness and fairly, I think if that's emulated, the ripple effect is quite substantial.
It really
and
is. Mm-hmm.
It's about calling it out, right? And that's the part, whether it's around checking in with someone saying, how are you, or how are you feeling? I think that point of kindness does create a culture that allows people to feel psychologically a little bit more safe, because it ties into vulnerability. So I love the feedback and the suggestions too.
Okay. I was just thinking, you know, with my team, when I see them thinking kindly and acting kindly towards each other, it's perhaps a group chat where on Teams where they're sharing the work, or does anyone need help today? And I've got some space. Can I help you? And I mean, the feeling I get when I read that conversation, and I could just let it go and like, oh, I feel good. But I immediately join the conversation and I say, you guys are making me so proud today, or it's warming the cockles of my heart because, you know, I'm seeing them live out that kindness. And I know how it makes them feel, and I know how it makes me feel. And so I just wanted to share that with others today. So I really do think it's powerful.
Comments from anybody? I think one of the questions Lisa did ask, and I think apart from Joe telling us a little bit about hers, I don't think we've heard from any of the other organizations on what are you doing internally? What are some of the things that you're looking at? And I know, Loretta, you also mentioned some of the ways you're doing it, but we've got a number of organizations on here, and it would be so nice to hear some of the ways that, even if you're an employee of that organization and you're not a leader in that company, what are some of the ways that that have made you feel but as a belonging in the organization, and that somebody's treated you kind?
Hi, Colleen. I'll jump
Lauren.
in. So a key thing that we've been focusing on at EY is empathy, and that's why this COI model is very much aligned to that. Is how do we develop an empathetic nature amongst our people, because it doesn't come naturally to everybody. To really look at somebody and go, you know, I've never been in your shoes. I haven't experienced what you experienced, but also everybody's dynamic at home is different. So even though on paper we might look the same, we are definitely diverse, because yes, I've got a husband. Yes, I've got 3 children. Yes, I work at EY. I'm a female. I'm a white female. Somebody else on paper might have exactly the same makeup, but they don't have the same husband as me. They don't have the same 3 children as me. They don't have the same job demands as me. They don't do the same commute as me to work. They don't have the same family infrastructure outside of that structure to me. So it's how is somebody empathetic towards when I am honest and authentic with who I am. And that's what we really encourage is with our people to be authentic, but the only way to be authentic is if you have that empathy from the person on the other end of the conversation.
That's true.
So yeah, in short, that's something we really focused on from about June last year, and it fits into our EY strategy as well, and the culture that we want to embed within our strategy.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, empathy was a big word for me. I remember my interview to become a manager. One of the panel members said to me, "You seem very empathetic," as if it was a terrible thing. And how are you going to deal with that as a manager? And I said, well, I'm not going to change who I am. I'm just going to have a different job. So I'm still going to be empathetic, but I really do believe there's a lot of people who think if you're caring, if you're kind, if you're empathetic, they're going to walk all over you. And I found the reverse to be true, actually. I find that if you really genuinely care about people and show them and tell them you care, and it has to be authentic. And sometimes some people are easier to love than others. So you might have to work on that, finding those things about them that are lovable. And yeah, I think, and then passing it on, right? Modeling it. These are my expectations for how we work as a team. I'd love if you join us in that. And most people do. Some people are shy and they sort of sit back, but I haven't had anybody say like, I'm not acting like that. I'm not like that. I'm not that person. I actually find people think, well, yeah, I'd like to learn how to be more empathetic, more kind. What could I say instead of saying this? Because this is what automatically comes out. So what would be a better response? And coaching people and helping them to find better words, to find how to connect to people better. And yeah, it all comes from trust. It all comes from making people feel safe and that they can share who they really are and know that they aren't judged or held back for it. Any other questions? Any other experiences we can learn from? Thank you very much for making my first outing so safe. And I really appreciate it. And as I said, I've put my details there if anybody wants to connect offline to talk about it further, or if you'd like me to talk with your teams or anything, if that's valuable, please just be in touch.
Lisa, thank you so much. And what I always enjoy about these sessions is that we have these tangible things that we can take away,
Yes.
you know, that we can go and apply in our businesses. So thank you so much for making it so tangible and practical and for being with us here this morning. And thank you to Refinitiv for making this session happen. The next session's on the 20th of May. We're doing something a little bit different to our board walks and leaders walks. We will not be doing a 9 to 11 on the 20th of May. What we've actually found is from a network perspective is that families during COVID-19 have taken on so many extra tasks and things that they have to do. And we really are finding that a lot of especially moms and dads are totally overwhelmed with what they've had to take on. In the last 2 months alone, I've heard of about 12 women that have taken sabbaticals because they are just totally overwhelmed. So what we've decided to do is we're going to do on the 20th, we're going to do a lunch and learn. And essentially what we're going to do is the participants on the session are going to each get a voucher to go and order your lunch and to bring your lunch along. It will be from 12:30 until 2. And if you go onto the Business Engage website under the events for the 20th of May, you'll start seeing all of the hosts that we've got. So what we're going to do is there won't be a central link for that event. Each of the hosts will be given a group the host will give a 20 minutes or 15 to 20 minute talk about some of the tools that they've managed to use over this period, some of the ways that they've overcome a lot of what they've had to do, and how they've really stepped into their roles, their new roles that they've had to take on. And then it will just be a lunch with those hosts. So have a look-see. It will be on a first-come, first-served basis. You'll still be able to join, but there will be a number of people that, depending on numbers, that won't get vouchers because we really are seeing that it's going to be quite a huge event. So have a look-see, get your bookings in, and we look forward to having you with us on the 20th. Any further comments just before I close? Oh, somebody says they've already registered.
Awesome.
So thanks so much for being with us today, Lisa. Once again, thanks
Colleen.
Veronica. Thank you so much to you and your team. And have the most awesome day, and we'll chat soon.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, team. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.